Good afternoon and good evening, and welcome to this webinar on how to ace GMAT sentence correction. In this webinar, we'll talk about the famous three-step approach that e-GMAT pioneered about 8 years back, in which we leverage meaning and logic to answer GMAT sentence correction questions. Yes, GMAT sentence correction is about grammar, but primarily is about meaning and logic, and we'll really see how, when you focus on meaning and logic, grammar really becomes a natural extension and not a bunch of rules that you need to remember. So fairly application focused webinar. So to make sure that you know the grammar that we're going to use in this webinar, we did send a few video lessons your way. They were on verb ing modifiers, verb phrases, etc. If you've gone through these video lessons, well and good. That's wonderful. You're well prepared for this webinar. If you haven't gone through these video lessons, then they are a part of your free trial. Post this webinar, log into the e-GMAT account, and just go through these video lessons. Let me actually hide this. Also, we have some upcoming free webinars. We have a free webinar on how to solve number properties questions. Very similar to today's webinar. The focus is on number properties again. In that webinar, we look at, similar to today's webinar, a unified approach to solving the easiest to the most challenging number properties questions. We actually start from the very basics in this webinar and then end with the most difficult number properties questions that you're likely to see on the test. But throughout that 2 hour span, we actually use the same approach. We use the same simple concepts, yet so make the approach of, or rather extend the approach to so that you can solve those 700 level questions over there. And then next Saturday, another very popular webinar that we have is on how to ace GMAT reading comprehension. This webinar is designed for folks, especially those who are not voracious readers, people who find reading to be difficult. And in this webinar, we demonstrate if you follow certain reading strategies, if you execute them while you're reading, how that improves your comprehension, and comprehension with a mindset to be able to solve GMAT reading comprehension questions. That webinar is next Saturday. It's also hosted by Payal Tandon, who's the main host of today's webinar. With that, let me introduce myself. My name is Rajat Sudana. I am one of the co-founders of e-GMAT, and I am going to be a co-host today. Payal Tandon, who's the other co-founder of e-GMAT, is going to be a main host today. And then supporting us on this webinar, we have Sandeep, who's a GMAT strategy expert, and he's going to be our co-host today as well. I have upwards of 100 students in this webinar, and to make sure that we do justice to this group as a whole, we ask a few leading questions. One of them is, when do you plan to take the test? And the second one's, what is your target GMAT score? If you've not responded to either one of these questions, please do so. All right, let's look at the first question. When do you plan to take the test? We have the biggest group over here that includes people who haven't taken a data as of yet. Other than that, I'd say I have 4 more or less equally sized groups, starting from those who have their test right away. That's about 32 of you to those who have upwards of 45 days before their test. That's about 30 of you. With regards to the target GMAT scores, it's very interesting how these numbers change slightly from 1 week to the other. We ask this question in every webinar. So 730 to 760, that's the biggest group that I see over here. That's about 36 or 37% of you. 710, 720, again, a very similar number. 700 or below is just about 15% of the class. So 85% of you are aiming for a score of 710 or 720. With that, let's go right in the webinar pane. What you'd see over here is the presentation. It'll probably take a few seconds for the presentation to update at your end, and then a question and answer pod or a Q&A pod right below this. The idea really is that we'll go through the presentation, we'll go through the session as scheduled, and if you have a question during the session, you can pose that question, and Sandeep or I would be able to answer that question. So there's essentially 3 parts of this webinar. In the first part, I'll do a brief introduction to e-GMAT. In the second part, we'll actually go into the core of the session. That's when Payal would take over, And in the third part, we'll have an open-ended Q&A. If there's a question that hasn't been responded to, we'll address that question in the third part of the webinar. Okay, with that, let's go through the first part, which is 15 minutes an introduction to e-GMAT. So early on, I asked this question: what's your target GMAT score? And upwards of 60% or so, around about 60%, if you wanted to score 720 or higher. In fact, many of you wanted to score much higher than that. And while that may be the case, statistically, only 6% of the people get to those scores. And this is despite the fact that if you look at the median scores at top B schools, they've actually been going up for the past few years, and that trend hasn't abated, and it's not likely to abate any soon. So what is it that folks who get to those high scores do? A good percentage of them use e-GMAT. Why do we really say that? When you look at the key stats on main forums, be the GMAT as well as GMAT Club, what you're going to find is that the more reviews that have been posted for e-GMAT than have been posted for all the other major prep companies combined. Similarly, when you look at the number of success stories, you'll find, and this is just the start of the last 12 months, that more successful students mention e-GMAT as the course that helped them succeed than do mention any of the other prep companies. So what makes our students more successful? I mean, clearly students from other prep companies are successful as well. What makes the propensity of e-GMAT to succeed on the GMAT higher? I think there's one thing that differentiates us from other prep companies is how we think about your GMAT preparation or the architecture of learning that we provide. So when you think about the various architectures of learning, there are two predominant architectures that you would see today. The first one is what we call as a classical book-based architecture. And the second is the private tutoring-based architecture. When you look at most of the GMAT prep courses out there, you'd find that even though they provide quizzes, audiovisual instruction, they may provide a few study plans, but the primary architecture, the learning architecture that they provide is built around this book-based architecture. When you map e-GMAT to one of these architectures, you're going to find that e-GMAT is centered a lot more around this private tutoring-based approach. And to understand, why one approach is better than the other, let's kind of see how do you get to that 720 or higher score. So if you want to get to that 720 or higher score, there are a few things that you need to do. First is you need to create a path towards that goal. Depending on your strengths and weaknesses, you need to understand what's the best way for you to get to that 720 or higher score. Then you need to learn all the concepts that you don't know. If you know the concepts, you need to brush them. Just knowing the concepts isn't enough. You also need to learn how to apply those concepts. And while doing that, you need to attain that level of mastery that puts you in that top 5, top 6, top 1 percentile of students. Now, the thing to notice over here is that each one of these steps is important. If you don't have a study plan, you won't put your energy in the right direction. If you do not know the concepts, then as you move towards solving questions, you're going to falter. If you don't know how to apply the concept, same thing. I mean, you won't be able to reach that top 6 percentile of students. And if you don't attain that level of mastery, then you may get a 650, you won't get a 740 or so. And again, that is the difference between an admit to a Wharton or a Kellogg versus one to a lower ranked school. So let's see how a book-based approach, addresses these challenges. So a book-based approach is all about autonomy. When you study using books, you get a few canned study plans, and you're forced to choose from one of those study plans. Then you start learning concepts. Now, books are a great way to learn concepts. I mean, they teach them well, and there's enough detail in books around concepts. The only problem is books don't give you feedback. I mean, when 1,000 people go through a chapter in a book, they learn to 1,000 different degrees. And books don't tell you very well whether you've crossed a threshold of learning so that you can move forward or not. That burden of validation, which is over here, is entirely on the student. The next point is learning application, learning how to apply those concepts. And this is one area where I think books don't do as great a job. Just the very static architecture is not very great at telling you while solving a question, this is what you do in step one, this is what you do in step two, this is what you do in step three. Or when you solve a question, they're not very good at pointing out at this step. The reason you faltered is because you faltered at this particular step. So some people are able to master application using books, but they are ones who either solve hundreds and hundreds of questions, or they are amongst the best and the brightest. And then when it comes to evaluation and mastery, most people who follow a book-based approach only resort to taking mock tests because that's the only tool that they provide with regards to evaluation of mastery. And again, even when you take a mock test, that onus of evaluation is completely on you as a student. A private tutoring architecture works slightly differently. When you work with a private tutor, the first thing that a good private tutor would do is to analyze your strengths and weaknesses, and based on that, understand the extent of effort needed to get to that 720 score, and where define the focus areas as well. Then a good private tutor will teach you the concepts that you need to know, and constantly evaluate you so that he understands that you've learned the concepts well enough. One area where when you work with a private tutor, you're going to benefit the most is applying those concepts. A private tutor would teach you when you, let's say, learn a verb ing concept or a strengthen concept or something in even odd. What do you do in step one, step two, step three while applying those problems? And when you falter, a private tutor would determine the step at which you faltered and give you specific feedback. And when it comes to the extent of mastery, when you work with a private tutor, um, a private tutor would constantly evaluate how well you are in a particular topic. You won't have to take mock tests to evaluate that extent of mastery. Uh, and, 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 and as you become proficient in one area, a private tutor would then ask you to start another area, and only when you become proficient over there. So, what are the key differences between the two approaches? While you learn the same concepts, the extent of personalization, the extent of application, and the extent of feedback is something which is a lot more in a private tutor-based approach. So let's see, why do we say that e-GMAT's built around this private tutor-based approach, whereas most of the other courses out there are built around the particular book-based approach. So we're going to start with each of the four steps, starting from creating a personalized study plan to ensuring that you've mastered application to the extent that that puts you among those top 6 or top 1 percentile of students. And we're going to take a case of someone who's going to start learning from a score of 600 and wants to get to a score of 720. So the first step which is there is to make sure that you create a personalized study plan. To do that, you need to do 3 things. The first thing is you need to quantify your starting abilities, which means that GMAT's a test of 5 different abilities, and you need to figure out what are those starting abilities in SCCR, RC, arithmetic, and algebra. Then you need to define the milestones, which is, if you want to get to that 720 score, what target abilities would you get? This point, this step gives you your starting abilities. This step gives you your target abilities. And then once you have both of these, then you have to really look at what are the areas where you still need to learn content, what are the areas where you know the content, and so you can just go towards cementing your methods and then refining. So how do you get your starting abilities? You take one of our mock tests. We call this a Sigma X mock. Um, and that's the only mock test in the industry that will give you these 5 different abilities. Then how do you define your milestones, which is what we call as your target abilities that help you get to that 720 score? We have a tool called GMAT Planner. That's an AI-driven utility that allows you to create that personalized study plan. How does this work? This guide takes your starting scores in both quant and verbal, and not just that, it'll even take what does it mean when it comes to SCCR and RC for a V28, what does it mean when it comes to arithmetic algebra for a Q44. And then it'll tell you if you want to get to that 720, what quant and verbal score should you aim for, and beyond that, what abilities in quant, which is arithmetic and algebra abilities, and what abilities in verbal should you aim for to get this Q50 and to get this V38. So when that happens, your GMAT preparation is no longer a black box where you're saying, okay, I'm going to study, 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 and hopefully I'm going to go from that 600 to that 720 score. It's a set of five very neatly defined milestones. In arithmetic, for example, you need to go from that 59th percentile to that 83rd percentile. Similarly, in sentence correction, you need to go from that 50th percentile to this 89th percentile, and so on and so forth. And when that happens, what does is you can really allocate time with regards to how much effort do you need to put into to get to that level of excellence. For example, in arithmetic, depending on how much time you put in every day, this tool can estimate how many weeks you would need. Similarly, in sentence correction, similarly in reading comprehension or critical reasoning. And you can really see in reading comprehension, for example, this guy's at 51st percentile. He doesn't need to get to a 90th percentile, so the amount of effort required is not the same as that required in sentence correction, where this guy is aiming for a 90th percentile. Again, similar starting point. So again, you can now see that this is no longer a black box. You can really see the starting milestones, the ending milestones at all of these points. So why did we spend upwards of 1,000 hours building this utility so that each one of you can build your personalized study plan in less than 7 minutes? In fact, anyone's worked with a private tutor, they'll tell you you won't get as granular a study plan as you get with this when you work with a private tutor. So that was just about creating study plans. Now, once you have a study plan, then the next thing that a private tutor does is teaches you concepts and gives you feedback while teaching you concepts. The e-GMAT learning architecture is designed just to do that. What you really see over here is just one of the 13 modules in our sentence collection course. It's a subject verb module. What you really see here is a set of video lessons which teach the core concepts in subject verb. Now, each of these video lessons has a built-in assessment. This assessment gives you feedback that's personalized to you. The system also tracks the amount of time you spent on each one of these video lessons. Now, when you compare this to another course, which is out there, this is a popular course by Magoosh, and what you really see is this is again the subject verb or agreement block. One thing that you'd see is there aren't that many video lessons. The second thing that you'd really see is there is no assessment here. The third is this time that you see is not the time that you spent on this video. It's the time, it's the length of the video. The next thing that a private tutor does is teaches you how to apply those concepts and gives you feedback at the step at which you're faltering. To do that, we built a specific entity called an application file. Again, once you learn a particular concept, again, this is in the subject verb module as well, we teach you how to apply that. And then we also evaluate your ability to apply this, not just on e-GMAT questions, but also on selected official questions as well. And there are upwards of 18 application files in the SC course. And this is how every module, whether it's a quant module or a verbal module, is architected. When you compare this to the Magoosh course, what you're going to find is that there is no concept of application file. You actually just have a quiz towards the end. And again, you don't even get a score. The intent over here is not to provide feedback, but just to provide practice. And this 5-question quiz is common to subject verb, auxiliary verbs, pronouns, and pronouns. So again, much more focus when you really see over there. The last piece is evaluation of mastery. You've been studying subject verb, you've been studying parallelism. How do you know that you, in sentence correction, you are in that top 10 percentile of students? Why? Because your goal is to hit that 90th percentile in sentence correction. Your goal is not just to learn SC, but to hit that 90th percentile, because only then would you hit that 720 score. So how do you evaluate mastery? We built a tool called Scholaranium in which you can take an SC ability quiz and evaluate your extent of mastery. Now, the beauty of this is it doesn't just give you an ability quiz, it also gives you analytics along with it. So when you don't hit that 90th percentile, as you can see over here, it can tell you where to focus your energy on. And clearly, if this guy fixes comparisons, the guy and can take another ability quiz, this guy would be much more closer to that 90th percentile. Excuse me. Now, the beauty of this architecture is because comparison is a separate module in the e-GMAT course, you can go there, spend about a day, fix comparisons, and come back and take another ability quiz. So this round tripping can be done in as little as a day. So now you can really see, while both the approaches teach you the same content, same concepts, the extent of personalization, the extent of feedback is a lot more here, and how we've incorporated that feedback that a private tutor provides through technology and through course content design within the e-GMAT course. Now, who's created some of this content? 4 out of GMAT Club's top 5 rated instructors have created this content, and these are 4 out of top 5 out of upwards of 300 instructors rated on GMAT Club, instructors who've been reviewed a lot more frequently over there. So while only a 6% of the folks score 720 or higher, you can really see why a good percentage of them use e-GMAT. With that, I've come to the end of the first part of my webinar. I would now invite Payal to start with the second part. If you want to stay updated with all things e-GMAT and a number of things that go on in the MBA world, you're welcome to connect with me on my LinkedIn. We post about 7 articles a week related to MBA as well as GMAT on my LinkedIn. With that, I'll now invite Payal to take over and start the second part of this webinar.
Thank you, Rajat, for that wonderful introduction. All right, good morning, good evening, and hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me clearly? Please press yes if you can. All right, sounds good. My name is Payal Tandon, and I will be your main host in this main part of the webinar. What we're going to do is we're going to begin with understanding what your current approach towards sentence correction is, because if we want to make sure that you learn how to ace sentence correction, we have to really see where you're at right now and where do you need to get to. All right, so this first step is really very important. The second thing that we're going to do is we're going to understand what is important to master sentence correction. What are those skills that are absolutely critical if you are to master this section? And towards the end, what we're going to do is put together a plan of action so that you know exactly how is it that you are supposed to execute this plan. So let's come to the first question here. Look at the question on the screen. What I want you to think about is that in your current approach towards sentence correction, which of the 3 items that you see on the screen is the most important? All right, let's get a few more responses here. All right, let's go to our next question. Now, when you solve a sentence correction question, how is it that you distribute your time among choices? You spend equal amount of time on each choice. That is 20% of time on each of the choices. You eliminate some wrong answers first and then you equally split your time? Or do you spend a considerably high amount of time analyzing choice A, that is the original sentence? All right, very nice. Thank you so much for your responses here, and let me broadcast the results here. So here was the first question, and let's get the right, yes. So about a majority of students say that they understand that the most important thing is to understand the meaning of the sentence. That's about 57%, and then about 27% of you believe that efficiently finding patterns in answer choices is the most important. It is the most important thing. All right. Now, Let's look at the second question. In the second question, overwhelming majority believes that splits the time according to choice number 2, that is, you first eliminate some wrong answers, then equally split time. And this is where the problem lies. When we say that we believe that meaning is the most important thing, then that thought needs to be translated into actions as well. And that is the aspect that is not happening today, and that's the reason why you're not able to master, why you're not able to get to that level in sentence correction. Okay, what do I mean by that? If you truly believed that understanding the meaning of the sentence is the most important thing, then your answer to the second question should have been that you spend more than half of your time in analyzing choice A. And that is something which is not at all evident over here. Okay, and this is the problem that we need to fix. Okay, so what the problem is that you do know that meaning is important, but you don't know how to translate that into actions in your approach. And that is precisely what we're going to talk about in this session. Okay, what we learn in this session is, what do we mean by meaning? When we say meaning is important, what do we mean by that? Do we mean that you need to just stay on the surface, you need to know the gist of the sentence, or do we mean that you need to know all the nitty-gritty details of the sentence? We're going to talk about that in this session. Okay. Then once we understand what does it mean, what is the role of meaning, then we're going to say, okay, why is it that we should be spending majority of our time on choice A? Isn't that counterintuitive? I'm pretty sure this thought is going in your heads, that isn't that counterintuitive? I have 5 choices. Why do I have to give undue advantage to the original choice? We are going to talk about that. Okay. And then we're going to talk about, okay, how does this get in play into the whole timing aspect of the test, right? If I'm spending so much time, yes, it's a percentage that you're talking about, but how will but if I spend less amount of time, less percentage of time on the answer choices, am I doing justice to those answer choices? Am I missing out on those things, right? So we will talk about that aspect. And then towards the end, as I said, we will put together a plan of action, and I will tell you how is it that you can get to that 90 percentile ability in SC. Okay. Now, I would like to ask one more question to all of you. How long have you been preparing for the test? And how long have you been preparing for the test? I should have made a multiple choice question. All right. So I have a whole range of preparation time. Some have just started. Some have been working on it since last month, since last 3 months, 4 months, even up to a year. Okay. All right. Sounds good. So you all have some idea about what a sentence correction is all about. And again, this session is meant for everybody, because regardless of where you are at, you are in this session because there is something not quite clear in your head about how is it that you should be approaching sentence correction. So let me ask you this. What are the problems? What is the one biggest problem that you face in sentence correction today? Why is it you're here today? Tell me that. Many rules to learn, okay, inaccuracy, lot of rules, 700 to 800 questions, okay, not able to apply the concepts, lots of rules, want logic, okay, find it confusing, modifier rules, okay, all right. Okay, all right, see clarity. That's good. And again, you are at the right place. Why? Because yes, there are these grammar rules that you need to know, but you always need to know, I mean, those are just means, and I'll get to that, but it's good to know as to where you guys are at right now. Yeah. All right. So let's do this now. We are going to, this is a progressive session. By that, what I mean is that we begin the session with a very easy question, and we take, we end the session with a relatively difficult question, 720 to 750 level question. Okay. So, when you're solving that easy question, I want you to pay a lot of attention on the meaning of the sentence. It may come very naturally to you, okay, which is good. But we will talk about what kind of clarity you had when you read that easy sentence versus when we move to the more difficult question. So as you are solving the question, don't just think about marking the right answer. Also think about the mechanism by which you got to that answer, because I will be probing into that, because that is the most important thing over here, wherein we want to tell you how is it that you need to change your approach, and for that you need to be cognizant of your approach. Okay, so here's the first question, and I am going to give you, so I haven't as yet shared the question with you. Let me just get this out of the way. Whenever I give a question, I don't put a time limit on you. I let the class decide the amount of time that they want to take for the question. By that, what I mean is that when about 50% of students have selected an answer choice, I give about a 15-second warning. So all of you who are actively engaged in the question or plan to be actively engaged in the question, please click on Still Solving. All right. I have about 175 people in this class. Let's get this number to at least 100. Still solving to at least 100. I'll share the question just in a second here. All right, here you go. Here's the first question. All right, last 10 seconds. I'm going to end the poll now. So almost everyone selected choice D as the correct answer. Okay, so let me hide this, and D is indeed the correct answer. Now I'm going to get another poll as well here. So this was a rather easy question, right? Let's talk about, so I will still solve this question using my three-step process. Okay, so the first thing that I need to do is I need to understand the meaning of the sentence. Okay, regardless of where the underlined portion is, I need to read the entire sentence and understand what the author is saying. So I start doing that. Samuel has decided to allocate more time for his GMAT prep, even though he getting additional responsibilities at work. Okay, so the sentence presents a contrast. Why? Because there is, how do I know that? Because of this contrast word, even though. Okay, so even though the responsibilities at work have increased for Sam, he has still decided to spend more time on GMAT. Okay, so the sentence is absolutely clear. Now give me one reason why the sentence is easy to understand. First of all, the sentence is easy to understand, right? It's evident from the fact that you all selected choice D as the correct answer, right? So why do you think the sentence is easy to understand? It's short, what else? Simple structure, what else? Relatability, absolutely. You can relate it with your life. The most important reason over here is that it is very relatable. This is something which you live with, right? So, all right, so good. I'm glad that you understand. Okay, so now let's understand what are the mistakes. Now it was very easy to spot a mistake as well in this sentence, right? Because even though he getting additional responsibilities at work seems kind of incomplete, right? When you're reading this, you feel that the author is going to say something more, but then you pause and you think, oh, even though he getting, oh, the author just messed up with the verb here, right? So you know as to what is wrong with the sentence. So now what you're looking, the verb is missing here. So now what you're looking for is the choice in which this error is not there or in which this entire part is corrected. Now, why did you not select choice B as the correct answer? What is missing in choice B? There's no contrast, absolutely. Now, it removes the contrast, absolutely. So the reason why choice B is wrong is there is no contrast here, which means now if you had not understood the relevance of the word of even though in the original sentence, you would not have rejected choice B. Okay, so again, that's where understanding of meaning comes about. Okay, all right. Then let's look at choice C. Why is choice C wrong? Choice C is wrong because again, when he gets, there's no linkage with regards to timing over here, right? So the author has simply put in the linkage here which doesn't even exist, which is absolutely nonsensical. Okay, so that's why choice C is wrong. Choice D is absolutely correct. Now, can you compare the sentence structure of choice D with the sentence structure of choice A? Let's say over here in choice A, we said even though he got additional responsibilities at work, right? So how would you compare the two choices A and D? It's a very simple sentence, absolutely, but what happened to the verb? Is there a verb still in choice D? Is there a verb still in choice D? There is no verb in choice D, right? Now, but so basically the sentence structure has changed. Despite getting additional responsibilities at work, the sentence structure is not the same as choice A, but the sentence communicates the same exact meaning. So what does that tell you? What this tells you is that you can have multiple sentence structures communicating the same meaning. Okay, but really what you need to, for you to be able to figure out whether that sentence structure is indeed applicable for you is you need to have that good understanding of what are the various different sentence structures possible. Okay, now if this sentence were written in a complicated manner in a context that we weren't really very familiar with, then selecting choice D as the correct answer may have not come that naturally to you. Okay, but again, the reason why I have this very easy question over here is to tell you those various aspects that are applicable that you know very well, but you have to really practice doing those using the right kind of tools, using the right kind of techniques. Okay. Now, choice E. Preparation because he got. Now there is no causal relationship over here, and that's why choice E is wrong. Okay. So overall, what you need to understand is that first of all, meaning can be distorted in various ways. In this simple sentence, what we saw was meaning got distorted by removing the entire contrast, by adding a nonsensical timing relationship, by adding a nonsensical causal relationship. Right? So that's how we were able to change the meaning, distort the meaning in this sentence. Okay. And secondly, the choice that was correct was actually written in a very different sentence structure. So that is another thing that we need to be very, very clear about, that the correct choice may be written in a different sentence structure. So we need to be open about that. Okay. All right. Now I have a question in the Q&A part. A subject must have a verb? Absolutely, yes. Any subject needs to have a verb. That is your number one rule of sentence structure. So over here, the subject he does not have a verb, and that's why this is a problem here. Okay. All right. So again, meaning can be distorted in various ways. Now, when do you know that the meaning is distorted? Meaning has been distorted when you understand what the original sentence communicates. Okay. So now we're going to apply this very understanding on an official question. Okay. So here's the question, and let me bring about the poll here. Okay, go ahead. Please click on still solving. Okay, go ahead. Last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. Okay. So here are the responses. 65% of the class selected choice B. Now tell me, were you able to see any similarities between the first two questions? Okay, what was the similarity for those of you who were able to see some similarities? The contrast, yes. Contrast and the sentence structure, absolutely. Okay. All right. Now, what would you say, was the sentence structure a bit more complicated in the second question? Yes, it was. Was the context a bit more difficult in the second question? Yes, absolutely. So now, and again, your accuracy is the testament here. In the previous question, almost everyone got the question correct. In this question, again, the accuracy reduced to about 65%. Again, this is not a very difficult question. This is 600 to 650 level question. Okay, so let's now see how we can apply the same method on this question. Okay, next month, state wildlife officials are scheduled to take over the job of increasing the wolf population. Okay, I'm going to just pause here. Okay, whenever I read a sentence, I always break it down into smaller chunks, and before moving further in the sentence, I understand what is it that I have just read. Okay, so I assimilate that in my own words. And that's very important for me to understand the meaning, because if I don't do that, I don't get that level of clarity. I still remain on the surface, and I need to get a complete understanding of meaning if I have to answer the question correctly and confidently. Okay. So next month something is going to happen. What is going to happen? Some officials will take up the job of doing something. Doing what? increasing the wolf population. Okay, so far so good. Now, where in the federally designated recovery area, so wolf population where? Wolf population in this specific area. Okay, then there is a comma which makes for a natural pause, so I definitely paused here. The number of which will, however, ultimately be dictated by the number of prey in the area. Okay, the number of which, all right. Now this is something which I have to now understand. The number of which will, however, so there is however, which means that there is a contrast here, right? So the number of which will, however, ultimately be dictated by the number of prey in the area. So something will be governed by the number of prey in the area. Now what is that something? That something is, what does which talk about? What does which refer to here? Which talks about the wolf, because again, the sentence is about increasing the wolf population, the number of wolves. So if the author is talking about the number of which here, he must be talking about the number of wolves here. So what he's saying is, yes, there are these officials who will be responsible for increasing the wolf population, but in reality, the number of wolves really is dictated by the number of prey that exists in the area, that is the amount of food that's available for the wolves. Okay. Now this is the level of understanding that I need to have whenever I read a sentence. Okay. So my question to you is, how many of you had this level of understanding when you read the sentence on your own? Okay. So I can see about 70% of the class had that level of understanding. Okay. Now the question, okay, good. So the remaining 25% of the class, do you now understand how is it that you need to be reading the sentence? Now one thing that I want you to understand is that when I read the sentence, I went into the context of the sentence. I went deep into the sentence. Okay. I questioned over here, how was I able to figure out? I have a question in this, over here, which refers to wolf or population. When I am in, okay, so let me ask you this question. Does it make sense to say the number of population will, however, ultimately be dictated? No, it doesn't, right? So really over here, what the author is intending to communicate is that the number of wolves will, however, be dictated by the number of prey, right? But he has not written the sentence in the correct manner. So at this stage, when you're understanding the meaning, what you are supposed to do is understand what is the role of this pronoun, okay? And after that, you have to go into whether that usage is correct or not. Okay, in the first step, okay, so I am getting these questions in the Q&A pod. Guys, hold on. I understand that that there is an error pertaining to which, but I want you to understand first is that how is it that we determine what should which refer to? In the meaning step, you are trying to figure out what does which refer to technically from meaning standpoint. And for that, you have to understand the context of the sentence. Okay, so which technically refers to wolf. Now, can it refer or not is a whole different question. Okay. All right. So everyone is clear about the meaning? Absolutely clear about the meaning. And then I'll come to the error analysis. Okay, so the main thing over here is you have to split the sentence into its smaller chunks. Okay, all right. Now let me move forward. Next month, now when I have to understand what all errors exist in the sentence, there is this list of errors that should go in my head. That should always run in my head. And what I would suggest is when you're just starting to prepare, it makes sense to write these 8 things down on your scratch pad and just do a tick mark when you are going through the sentence. Oh, there is no subject verb error here. Oh, there is no verb error here. Because as you are reading the sentence, you would automatically know whether there are any errors from subject verb, pronoun, modifier perspective or not. Okay, so now in this one, you know the number of which is more of a sticking point here. Now this is where you think about, okay, logically, which should refer to wolf, but grammatically, can that happen? And the answer is no. Grammatically, that cannot happen. Why? Because wolf, what is the role of wolf over here? What is the role of wolf? Yes, wolf is acting as an adjective. Okay, it's describing the population, increasing the wolf population. What population? What kind of population? Wolf population. So it's describing the word population, which means it's been used as an adjective. Now, can a pronoun refer to an adjective? Yes or no? Based on your high level understanding of pronouns, no, it cannot refer to an adjective. That is why this sentence has a grammatical error. But logically, from the context of the sentence, you know that which refers to wolves. But grammatically, from your understanding of grammar concepts, you know that it cannot. Why? Because wolf is used as an adjective. Okay. So do you guys understand? What I want you to understand over here, again, the goal is not to get to the correct answer. The goal, yes, ultimately it is, but in this session, it's the journey that is more important. Okay, so I want you to understand that the thought process that you have to go through when you're understanding the meaning versus the thought process that you go through when you are critically evaluating whether the author has written the sentence in the right manner or not. Okay, so again, meaning-based focus is very, very important. If when you are reading the sentence, let's say if I was reading the sentence and at a high level I understood there is a contrast here, there is some job assignment, but I didn't probe into what does which refer to. If right away I thought that which is not written correctly without having a solid understanding of what it is that which needed to refer to, then when I get to the answer choices, if the question is difficult, I will get confused. Okay, and that's the whole reason why you have to be very, very clear about the roles played by each and every entity when you are reading the sentence. Is this point clear? It was a very dense sentence that I just said, but I want to make sure that all of you understand what the implication of that. Okay, good. Now, before moving on to the answer choices, I want to take up these questions here in the Q&A pod. So, which refers to wolf population, we went with that. Okay, so I have this question, which can refer to a noun. So, in this case, we can detect a pronoun error here since which can refer to recovery area. Okay, now, which cannot refer to a recovery area. Again, that is where, so thank you so much for putting that question up. When you, and this is the exact thing that I was talking about. When you are reading the sentence, you have to read the sentence to understand the meaning of the sentence. Even if the sentence is written in an incorrect manner, you need to extract all the meaning from it, all the juice from it. Okay, which is why when you are reading the sentence, you are not thinking about that which can refer to recovery area. Again, how does that even make sense? How does it make sense to say that the number of recovery area will, however, ultimately be dictated? That doesn't make sense, right? So again, when you are doing the step one, which is understanding the meaning, you have to go by what makes sense logically. Okay, once you figure that out, see over here we figured out what makes sense logically. That's when we got into that critical part of our thing to identify what mistakes the author did. That's when we were able to figure out that okay, this is not the correct usage. Okay, so I hope that you understand this part now. Okay, even focusing on the meaning, I just realized I didn't spend a lot of time on choice A. Yes, and again, that is where the difference is. When you think that you know that you have to understand the meaning, but you don't know how to really execute that in principle, right? And that is why I'm demonstrating the exact technique on these 4 questions in this session. Okay, you have to go deep into the meaning. You have to think about it. And again, this is a very simple test that I do for myself. the author has spent the time in writing the sentence. It takes a lot of effort to create a question, right? To think about the right kind of context and to actually write that sentence. So when you are reading the question, give it its due so give it the time so that you understand what is it that the author wants to communicate to you. Okay, that's why spend that time. If you go to the sentence with that perspective, I'm 100% sure you will be able to extract the right kind of meaning from the sentence, which will help you in selecting the correct answer. Okay, so I already answered this question with regards to how can it refer to wolf, because pronouns cannot refer to adjective. You're absolutely right. Good. Now I have one more question here. Could you say that ultimately is redundant since the sentence already uses however? No, I cannot say that. Okay, why? Because however is a contrast word. Okay, ultimately is simply saying that it will in the end be dictated by the number of prey. So both communicate absolutely different meanings. Okay, so no, they are not redundant. All right, so understanding perfect meaning in such a short underlined sentence is fine, but how do we find time where 2 or 3 lines are underlined? Well, you will need to get the time out. Ultimately, again, the thing that you have to understand is, and that's where till the time you don't understand what is at stake, you will not spend the right amount of time on the sentence. Okay, so I will take this question, I will demonstrate this with the next 2 questions, because next 2 questions are going to be long. So you will understand that, again, the thing to keep in mind is, if you have to solve that question correctly, confidently, you have to understand the meaning. Okay, now that being said, when you are learning the process, it is going to take a while for you will take longer to read the sentence to extract the right amount of meaning from it. But as you practice, as you apply that technique on 50 questions, utilizing the right kind of solution, this will become second nature. Students who master the meaning-based approach can solve SC questions in a minute or so easily. Okay, so again, which can also refer to number of wildlife officials in the original sentence. Does that make sense? Again, when I see such pronoun related doubts, what that tells me is that just because there are these different nouns in the sentence, the pronoun can refer to any of those. No. Yes, a pronoun can refer to any noun in the sentence, but that has to make sense. It should be contextually driven, right? How does it make sense to say the number of state wildlife officials will ultimately be dictated by the number of prey? The author is not stupid, right? The author is writing a proper sensical sentence, right? A sentence that's communicating proper meaning, right? So you have to keep that in mind, all right? But thank you for posting that question, because I do know that students do face that problem. So for you, what I would recommend is go through the pronouns module in the course, and there we do have these articles in which we talk about what are the various myths surrounding pronouns. So definitely that's going to help you. So I think I'm done with almost all the questions. I think which should be preceded by a comma. No, which should not be preceded by a comma here, because again, this is part of a prepositional phrase here, the number of which, right? So again, this is more of a construct that you have to be familiar with. Again, as you go through the content in the course, you will get exposed to such kind of constructs, and you will not really get this doubt. How much time should I ideally spend on an SC question? It really varies from question to question, frankly. And again, asking this question upfront when you are still preparing for the test is not really the right kind of question. Why? Because right now you're building the process, right? Now, timing, and I say this time and again, how much time you spend on a question is really a consequence of how comfortable you are with the process, right? So don't learn the process with a goal in mind that I need to spend only 45 seconds on an SC question, or only a minute and a half on SC question, and right, go with the approach that I need to build my ability to solve an SC question, right? And to build my ability, I need to focus on the meaning, I need to focus on the right process, right? as you practice, you will get there. And I'll talk about this in the second, in the third part of the session where I'll talk about putting together a plan. All right, I think we are almost done. I'm getting some repeated questions with regards to timing, so I will address those. The first words after the comma refer to a few words before the comma. In this, was it grammatically correct? Okay, so what the doubt is that the number of which appears after the comma, so this should refer to something right before the comma. Well, technically you're kind of correct, but not really. Why? Because there are these noun plus noun modifiers, which we talk about in modifiers concepts. Modifiers, so after application file 2. So look at that concept file. You will understand the kind of questions which are the kind of constructs in which the thing that follows after the comma need not necessarily refer to the thing immediately preceding the comma. But a good question, right? So these are the kind of constructions, kind of rules that you, quote unquote rules, that you need to be familiar with. And as you go through the course, you will get exposed to all of these things, right? I mean, so you'll notice that as I'm taking these questions, I'm able to tell you which exact concept file you need to go to so that these things can be clarified. Okay, so those things are very easy to clarify, and I'm glad that you're asking those questions, right? But again, encapsulating all of this is your meaning-based approach. All right? All right, so I will talk about option B and C, absolutely, so don't worry about that. Let me get to the answer choice analysis. I have a doubt which should refer to a phrase. Since that's not the case with option A, I rejected it. Is my concept okay? No, that is not okay, and I think I've explained that to you as to why which is wrong. How is wolf an adjective here? Okay, no question is stupid question. Increasing the wolf population. Again, as I said, wolf population. What population? What kind of population? Wolf population. So when you answer that, when you ask that question, what kind of population? That really is the answer is given by an adjective. Okay, red chair. What kind of chair? Red chair. Or wooden chair. What kind of chair? Wooden chair. So here, wooden chair, red, wooden, red are adjectives. Okay. All right. Is B correct? We'll get to that. Okay. So let's now So I'm going to now take up questions after I finish the answer choice analysis. Okay. Okay. So now, again, what you noticed over here was, let's come to the answer choices now. The size of population, however, will ultimately be dictated. Now, in choice B, what has happened is that, okay, choice B is correct, right? So what has happened is that the whole point, the whole issue with which has been eliminated. How? By removing which altogether. Okay. The size of population, however, will ultimately be dictated by the number of prey. Okay. So this choice is absolutely correct. Now, I want to spend some, so let's talk about choice C. Okay. And then I'll come back to choice B. When, however, so okay, in the federally designated recovery area, when, however, the number of wolves will. Now, tell me one thing. In choice C, there is this timing relationship that has been put in. Okay, that doesn't make sense. How does it make sense to say that the state wildlife officials are scheduled to take over the job when the number of wolves will ultimately be dictated? Right, so there is no timing the timing relationship is very nonsensical here, and that is why choice C is wrong. Okay. Now choice D, the number of which will, choice D has the same exact error, which logically refers to wolf, but grammatically cannot refer to wolf because wolf is an adjective, so choice D is wrong. Now last sentence, choice E, there is this connection error over here, because before but there should be a comma. Okay, whenever you connect two independent clauses and the second independent clause has but before it, it should always be preceded by a comma. So that's the problem here. And then the size of population ultimately be dictated. Again, that's a wrong verb form. And that's why this is wrong. Now, the thing to think about over here is between choices B and C. C is absolutely wrong because of meaning issue. Okay. B is absolutely correct, but there is the change in sentence structure. When I say change in sentence structure, the word which has been removed completely. Okay, and that's absolutely fine. So whenever you're evaluating answer choices, you have to be very, very clear about what is the meaning that you are supposed to communicate. Okay, so that's very important. Now, so I hope that this question is done. I'm confused, so I'm taking up questions in the Q&A pod again. I get confused between which and that. Both seem same at times. Again, yes, which and that can be used interchangeably. Again, technically they cannot be, but in the context of GMAT doesn't really test whether your understanding of whether you need to use which or that. Okay, so again, that is not tested, but in this case there is no question of which and that. Okay, how advanced the vocabulary has to be for building the meaning-based approach. Again, the question of vocabulary is always kind of not surprises me, but yes, there is that thing in certain other tests that you need to learn those word lists and whatnot, but that's not the case with GMAT. For GMAT, as long as you are going through the official material, as long as you're going through the e-GMAT material, you will be exposed to the level of vocabulary that you will ultimately see in the test. Okay, and I can tell you this, GMAT is not a test of vocabulary at all. Okay, now again, words such as dictated, words such as designated, those words you need to know. And again, through the session, through the 4 questions that we will take up, you will see that there aren't really that many difficult words. And again, you need to also, there is this other thing as well, in which you should be able to infer the meaning of the word through the context of the sentence, and we do talk about that in our reading comprehension course. Okay, but yes, to answer your question, really this is not a test of vocabulary, it's a test of logic. Okay, can you please explain the role of semicolon in the sentence? Now again, these questions are going more into the grammar part of it. Semicolon is used to connect two independent clauses, and yes, I did say that the semicolon before but is wrong. Because why? Because again, whenever you have but, you need to have it preceded by a comma if but begins an independent clause. And again, all these things have been covered in our foundation concepts, so please go through those foundation concepts. Okay. Alright, so I'm not going to be taking up, I'm actually removing these questions in which you've asked me about the grammatical nuances between comma and semicolon, because again, that's not the purpose of this session. Okay, so those things have been covered in our foundation module, so please go through those. Okay, now in option C, why should when talk about timing only? Because that's the purpose of when. Okay, what does when mean? When is linked to timing. That's why when talks about timing. Okay. Please explain choice E. Choice E is wrong because of the 2 reasons. As I said, semicolon is wrong, and that's a grammatical concept. And then secondly, the second grammatical concept is, but the size of the population ultimately be dictated. Be dictated is a subjunctive verb form, and that is not correct. And again, I know you're not clear about, you may not be familiar with the subjunctive verb form. That's a little bit advanced concept which is covered in our verbs module, right? But again, to answer this question, you didn't really need to know that kind of error, as long as you knew this. So again, the reason why you selected this choice, and that's a good point as well. Yes, we fret a lot on grammar rules, but frankly, if you were down to choices B and E, you should, before selecting any choice, and let's say you didn't have any clue about subjunctive verb, okay, you didn't remember this error here, semicolon error, okay, you weren't aware of it, or you just didn't notice that there is a semicolon here. But for you to select choice E as the correct answer, you should have had very solid basis for rejecting choice B. Okay, what is the strong basis for rejecting choice B? And that's something which I want all of you to keep in mind. When you are selecting a particular choice, you need to be very, very clear about why is it that you're rejecting each and every answer choice. Okay? So for those of you who selected choice E, or right now, tell me if B and E were the only two choices present in front of you, why would you reject choice B and select choice E? Tell me. Let's say you didn't know about the semicolon rule, you didn't know about the subjunctive rule, you were not able to identify those two grammatical errors. Why will you reject choice B? Now tell me, I will reject choice B because. The size of population, however, will ultimately be dictated, right? Again, there is no real reason for you to reject choice B. Okay, and that's why I want you, exactly. So that's why it's very important whenever you're solving an SC question, you need to absolutely make sure that you reject each and every incorrect answer choice before you mark your correct sentence, before you mark the correct choice. Okay? All right. So again, you need to thoroughly understand the meaning of the original sentence so that you do not struggle when you see the answer choices that may not have glaring grammatical errors but have logical shifts. Okay, that's what we saw in this sentence. Now, adopting this approach, which seems to be a familiar approach to you, but still you're not able to adopt it in the right manner. So adopting a new approach definitely takes time, and it helps to see the impact that this approach has had on successful students. So here is an example of one of the many students who benefited from this focus on meaning. Before using the meaning approach, Nishant struggled to finish verbal section on time. This was despite knowing all the SC rules. Okay. Now, we did go into some of the nuances of grammar in the previous discussion. Again, those things are easy enough to understand. What is more important for you is to learn about the entire approach. Okay. Now, once Nishant embraced the whole meaning-based approach, he was naturally able to solve SC questions with high accuracy, note the word high accuracy, in 45 seconds or fewer. Okay, Nishant was admitted to Ohio Fisher with full fellowship. Okay, even though he applied very late in the process, almost in round 3. And the reason that I absolutely love this story is because here is a guy who was stuck at 570 and was wondering whether he would even get into a B school. But in the end, with all his hard work, he was not only able to get into a B school that's highly ranked in operations management, but was also able to secure a full ride. And that's what happens when you focus on the right things. He's also written a wonderful debrief on GMAT Club, right? So again, what's interesting is that if you download his ESR, you will notice that he actually got 94 percentile in sentence correction, and that was the highest in any of the sections that he attempted. When I shifted from classroom or self-study coaching preparation to e-GMAT, the focus on solving problems by understanding the meaning of the sentence was time-consuming. But soon I picked up the trick and was able to solve SC questions in 45 seconds. Now, this is another story of an individual who sets very high standards for herself. Samya works at McKinsey. She's been a topper all her life. Yes, she struggled to score 760. She really struggled with SC because she just could not figure out how in some SC questions certain answer choices were incorrect and how to arrive at that correct choice in a definitive manner. Because of this, her score was stuck in the low 700s. She realized that she needed to take a look at sentence correction in a completely different light. And that's when she discovered the focus on meaning through this very webinar. And once Samya enhanced her approach, she realized that she could get to the correct answer in a definitive manner by focusing on meaning. And it's this confidence that propped her score to a 780 with a better than 99 percentile on GMAT verbal. Okay. All right, so now let's apply this approach on another question. And again, what I want you to keep in mind is that when you're reading the meaning of, when you're reading the sentence, your job is to get everything that you can from the sentence. Think about the author. The author has taken the time, taken the effort to write that sentence down. The least that we can do is we can understand the meaning. We can make sure that we understand what is it that he's trying to communicate. Read the next sentence with that thing in mind. Okay, forget about selecting the answer choices. Take as much time as you need to understand everything that there is in that sentence to understand. Okay, and there's a reason why I'm explicitly stating that for this question. You will realize that when you read the sentence. Okay, there you go. Okay, let me first get that. Yeah, can you please click on still solving? Okay, here you go. All right then, last 10 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. So, very interesting. Up until I gave you about last 15 seconds, the percentage of class who had selected choice B was down to about 35%. And then in the last 15 seconds, that number increased to 60%. So tell me, how was this question, and how was it, before we go into the details of this question, tell me about your experience with it. Did anything change in your approach when you looked at this question? Now, don't tell me about the choices. Just tell me about your approach. Okay? Just tell me about your approach. That did anything change in your approach? Focused on the subject, meaning based, easy if you understood the meaning. Knowing the meaning of the sentence made this difficult question more approachable. Absolutely. Thank you for that. I'm glad. I read the author's statement in more detail and what he wanted to convey. Good. And I'm hoping that helped. Okay, good. Okay, so very nice. Meaning helps. I'm smiling. Thanks. Very nice. That is good. And I'm also smiling. So good. So let's go into the details of this. And again, guys, one thing that I do want to tell you is that focus, we are all very logical people. We are all very, if give us a logic, we can always take care of that very easily, right? The key to acing anything in verbal is just, it's that switch in your mind that you have to turn on. And that switch, what that does is that takes the focus away from the whole, rule-based impression that SC has to that logic-based impression for SC. Okay, that's all you have to do. And when you do that, there is that innate capability in you that you can tap into and get to that 90 percentile in sentence correction. I'm not saying that is easy. It will take an effort, but with the right kind of approach, with the right kind of tools and the right kind of content, you can definitely get there. Okay, what's the level of this question? This is a 700 level question. Okay, and I will say this, that this batch has actually done quite well in this question. Typically, I have about 53%, 50 to 53% accuracy for this question, but this batch has actually done way better than the other batches. So, all right, let's look at this now. I'm going to take this away. Okay. All right. Because diegetic music, so as soon as I read the word because, I know there is a cause and effect, right? Now, because diegetic, so in my scratch pad, I'm going to write that down, that there is a cause and effect here, some cause and effect. Because diegetic music, now diegetic music, I have no idea what the word diegetic means, okay? But I don't really need to worry about it. Even if I don't know what diegetic music means, I know what music means. So I'll just say, so I'm just going to shorten that up to say DM. Even though diegetic music, DM, actively, and I paused here, why? Because there is this comma over here. Actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. And that's a comma pair, so I stop here. Now, what is this part telling me? What is this part describing? Actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. It's describing, what is it describing? Yes, it's a modifier. It's describing diegetic music, DM, absolutely. And what is it saying? Actively referenced, so referenced in the film instead of simply being in the background. That's what this is saying, okay? So that's what diegetic music, that's how it is used in the film. Invoking a sense of verisimilitude. Now, what invokes a sense of verisimilitude according to this sentence? Invoking a sense of verisimilitude, DM, absolutely. DM invokes a sense of verisimilitude. Now, did you know the meaning of verisimilitude? Yes or no? Before reading the sentence, no. And so will I consider this as a difficult vocabulary word? No, I won't. Okay, invoking a sense of verisimilitude, so I'll just say invoking some kind of sense. Then let's see what comes next. The idea that art can express a truthful version of reality. Now the author has himself described what verisimilitude is. What is verisimilitude? It's the idea that art can express a truthful version of reality. Okay, now even if this part were not there, still not knowing the meaning of verisimilitude would not have gotten in the way of my answering this question. Because again, I can always, invoking a sense of verisimilitude, invoking some kind of sense. Okay, so again, the point is, yes, you will see difficult vocabulary words, words that you are not familiar with, but more often than not, as you will be able to either infer the context of those words, or you will be able to, or you won't even need to do that. Okay. Now, so far what I've read is, let's come back. The sentence is about DM. What we know about it is there is some descriptive information about DM, right? Now, filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. Now, this is where I sense some problems. So far, I was all deep into DM, diegetic music, right? The author told me everything, a lot about diegetic music, how it is used, what it invokes, and, he described the stuff that he invoked, right? But now all of a sudden, filmmakers came into picture. So there was a bit of a jump here, right? How many of you experienced that jump? It's like you're walking on a plane and then it just goes to another level all of a sudden, right? Okay, so whenever that happens, just make a note of that. In proper writing, such jumps should not be there. There should be proper transitions. Your writing should be, the stuff that you're reading or writing should be smooth. So when you experience such jumps, that means there is some error over there. That's an indication of an error. That's a clue that there is an error there. Okay, so I just want you guys to be cognizant of that. Okay, so why I'm telling you this is that when you're reading the sentence for meaning, by strategically pausing at the right points, what I'm doing over here, when I'm pausing at the comma here, I'm strategically pausing. I know where to pause, and I'm understanding the meaning. I'm assimilating the meaning, and when I do that, when I get to a point wherein I feel, oh, what happened here? There was a jump there. That's a very, very strong clue that there is something not quite right with the sentence. But again, that clue works only if you are applying the strategic pausing method. Okay, not otherwise. If you're reading the sentence in one breath, you will find these jumps quite a lot, right? Because there's just different kinds of information in the sentence. But if you're strategically pausing and you still find those bumps, that means there is something not quite right. And again, think about it as you're driving, and this is a very good comparison that you can keep in your mind, that as you're driving on the road, if you are really going at a fast pace, each of those speed bumps, so even the small issue, so even the small dent in the road is going to be manifested in a big way. But if you're going slow, those little bumps will not really manifest, but truly a speed bump is going to show up in your slow speed as well, right? So that's the beauty of applying strategic pausing. And while applying strategic pausing, when you can actually detect errors just by experiencing certain bumps when you're reading the sentence. Okay, so again, the reason why I'm emphasizing on these things is that when you are applying that meaning-based approach, there are certain things which will come very naturally to you just by the virtue of you applying the process. Okay, so it's not that meaning-based approach is a whole different thing, and then you have to anyway go through all the error analysis on which you focus on grammatical roots. No, the meaning-based approach actually helps you do that error analysis really very effectively. Okay, all right. Let's come back to the sentence. I know that I digressed from the sentence, but again, these are the things which are very, very important for you to know before you invest into this new approach. All right. So filmmakers creating period dramas use it often. Now, what the sentence is saying is that there are these filmmakers who create period dramas, who create certain kind of movies, use it often. Use what often? It definitely should refer to diegetic music. Okay, why? Because we're talking about what diegetic music is, and now the author is saying that filmmakers who create these period dramas use diegetic music often. Okay, now after you read the sentence, are you wondering, the sentence had to present a cause and an effect, right? Because there was use of because. Now, do you know what the cause is? Do you know what the effect is? Do you know that? Do you know what the cause and the effect is? First of all, tell me, has the author written the sentence in the manner that you can figure out what the cause and the effect is? No, the author has not really written the sentence in the right manner. Okay, now what do? Whenever the author does not do a good job of writing the sentence in the right manner, you have to figure out what, you have to get to the bottom of it. You need to infer the meaning. Okay, meaning of the sentence is not clear, but each of the individual parts are clear. Okay, so think about it in this manner, that you have the pieces of the puzzle. Okay, and what are these pieces? These pieces are the individual small parts of the sentence. You have all those pieces, but what you don't have is a complete, those pieces put together to give you the complete puzzle. And that is what you need to do before you even take a look at the answer choices. I know majority of students at this point think that if I take a look, yes, the meaning is not clear, but I have gist of the sentence, let me go to the answer choices, and the answer choices will definitely give me a clue as to what is wrong with the sentence. How many of you have that kind of mindset? I need that to change today. Until the time you don't have a complete understanding of the logical meaning that the author wants to communicate, I don't want you to be taking a look at the answer choices. Answer choices will not give you a clue. Yes, in easy questions they may, because again, those questions are by nature easy, but in difficult questions, they will confuse you even more. Okay? So the next step is for you to infer the meaning. Now, what do? You know that you just have to put the pieces of puzzle together. That's all you have to do. What you know is that there is, because diegetic music, there are two descriptions about it. So how it is used and what it does. Okay, diegetic music invokes a sense of verisimilitude, right? The idea that art can express a truthful version of reality. Filmmakers creating period dramas, creating historical dramas use it often. Now again, there is that linkage, right? Because diegetic music invokes a sense of verisimilitude, the filmmakers who are creating these historical dramas use diegetic music often. So the only way to correct the sentence is to convert invoking into invokes. Okay. Now with this understanding, we go to answer choice analysis. Okay, now in this, let's come to choice B. Actively reference in the film rather than confined to the background, diegetic music is often used. So again, this was the descriptive part of the sentence, right? Now this part was written later in the middle of the sentence. Now this descriptive part starts the sentence. Okay. But it's absolutely fine. Diegetic music is often used by filmmakers creating period dramas because it invokes. So again, this has been, invoking has been more changed into invokes. Everything in the sentence is fine. Okay, so choice B is correct. Now tell me, for those of you who rejected choice B, why did you reject choice B? About 40% of the class rejected choice B. Give me one solid reason for rejecting choice B. I missed the word because in the original sentence, so shifted from B to E. Now look at this. Again, you missed the word because. Why? Because you're still not focused on the meaning. That's the only reason why you would have missed the word because. In hurry, mixed up the meaning. Look at this. Two reasons that I see, both of them are with regards to meaning. I thought modifier, modifying the filmmakers. Which filmmakers? How is that possible? The word it, what it referred to. Again, if you focused on the meaning in the original choice, you would have figured out what it refers to. Okay, because again, logically and grammatically, it can only refer to diegetic music. What else can it refer to in choice B? Better to start with the subject. Okay, that's a good point. Not really. And that is why you have to understand the various sentence structures that exist. Okay, as you go through the e-GMAT course, what you will be exposed to various different kinds of sentence structures. Okay, why they are correct. Okay, you will be exposed to all that great content so that you don't make these mistakes. You don't make the mistakes that don't even exist. Okay. Quickly jump to answer choices. So again, just think about it. People who made the mistake, they were not focused on the meaning. Okay, or they understood the meaning, but they had those misconceptions with regards to the sentence should always begin with the subject, or I don't know what it refers to. Again, those are again just some rules that aren't even correct. Okay, so that's why you have to sift through what you have to cleanse your mind of such such incorrect rules. Okay, make sure that you learn the right thing. And that's why when I say that, again, grammar in SC is not really complicated. It's all very logical grammar. Okay. All right. So now let's come to choice C. Filmmakers create. All right. Another thing is that you again is this. I cannot emphasize enough on this. Whenever you select the correct choice, select an answer, you always have to reject each and every answer choice on at least one solid grounds. Okay, very, very, very important. On at least one solid ground. All right, let's take a look at choice C. Filmmakers creating period dramas often use diegetic music, which invokes a sense of verisimilitude. Over here, because it is actively referenced in the film rather than confined to the background. Now, for those of you who selected choice C, selected it because they thought, oh, this seems to be a more direct sentence structure and it seems to be fine. There's nothing wrong grammatically, so this should be the correct answer. So again, those of you who selected choice C did not go through the infer meaning step that you were supposed to go through during meaning analysis. Okay. Choice D, again, there's verb missing. Choice E, the only reason why choice E is wrong is because there is no causal relationship. Okay, and that should have been a very, very straightforward choice to reject because the author has presented a cause and effect. So we need to maintain that meaning in the correct answer choice. Okay. Okay, so I have a question here. Isn't the pronoun it too far away from the subject? There is no such rule that a pronoun has to be close to the noun. So again, go through the concept file in the pronouns module in which we address such myths. So guys, what I see based on some of your questions, based on questions from some of you, I feel that there are three issues here. First is you're not getting to the meaning completely. Okay. Second is that you are stuck with those incorrect errors in your mind, incorrect rules. And I really want you to, as I said earlier, cleanse your mind of those rules. Just clear out all these rules from your head and start afresh. I know it may sound as if I'm asking you to do, I'm telling you that you need to forget everything about SC, but I think it's a lot better, especially when you have these incorrect rules in your head, because that is going to get in the way of you applying the meaning-based approach. Because even if you learn the meaning-based approach, you will end up making mistakes in step 3 when you're analyzing the answer choices, because you may end up rejecting correct answer choice based on some incorrect grammar rules. Okay, so be very cognizant of that. Again, the SC course contains everything that there is for you to learn on sentence correction. Okay, so you will have everything there. Okay. All right, so High level takeaways over here, meaning was not clear, but we understood each and every entity and then we inferred the meaning before moving on to the next step. Okay. Again, error analysis step, if you think about it, was almost non-existent because we did all that stuff while understanding the meaning itself. Okay. And again, that's where all those clues come about when you're reading the sentence slowly, when you're strategically pausing. Any jumps, any shifts in meaning, they are what I call because of some grammar error. So that's a clue. Okay. And we rejected each and every incorrect answer choice on solid grounds. Okay. So now where are we at with regards to the whole meaning approach? What do you guys think about it till now? We've solved 3 questions, just one more question left in this session. But what do you guys think about it? I've given you a lot of tips about okay. So I have a question here. Do we have to stick to the meaning being conveyed? Yes, absolutely. Can the meaning being conveyed by it not be wrong due to grammatical errors? No, grammatical errors don't really lead to meaning-based issues. Again, in this sentence, for example, the meaning was not clear, right? Because of a grammatical error, but we inferred the meaning, right? So that's how you have to look at it. Okay, logical plus grammatical meaning should be seen in parallel. Absolutely. Okay. Yes, you definitely need practice, and again, for practice purposes, we have the right kind of focus here. Okay, but time pressure, I can't focus. Maybe I have to practice a bit more. Good. I'm glad that you're bringing up these issues. Okay, so let's talk about this stuff right now. One thing that I want you guys to understand is that we didn't speak about grammar rules a whole lot, right? And again, if you focus on the meaning, you won't really need to worry about those nitty-gritty grammar rules, okay? But the main thing over here is that I want you to understand is that grammar is really a tool to communicate meaning, okay? It's the means to the end, okay? And what's the end? The end is communicating the meaning. So when we shy away from doing well in SC, when we get scared of SC, it's really when we let the grammar become the end. Okay. So just read the content on the slide once more. So I'm not saying grammar is not important, but the thing for you to understand is grammar is not the end. Okay. You need to know grammar rules so that you know how English language is used to express meaning. Ultimately, it is meaning that's the key. Okay. Now I'm going to take you away from meaning-based approach for just a few seconds. Okay. And I want you to focus on why is it that people falter in SC today. They don't spend sufficient time on choice A to understand the meaning, which leads to them not having a solid basis for finding the correct answer. Okay. When they look at the answer choices, they're looking at the answer choices to find clues. Okay, they think that, okay, I've read the original sentence, I don't know what's going on, let me get some clues from the answer choices. Okay, and in the process of doing that, they do reject a couple of answer choices, 2 or maybe sometimes 3 answer choices, and they take that as their victory. Oh, I rejected 2 choices. Oh, I rejected 3 choices. But really, that's not a victory. Okay, they do significant back and forth among choices, they get confused, and they make mistakes that could have been avoided. Okay. How many of you have gone through this cycle here? Absolutely. Right? And that is something which if you follow the meaning-based approach, you will be able to avoid going into. Because this is no fun, because this not only has an impact on your accuracy for sentence correction question, but imagine if you go through such a back and forth in SC questions, what impact is that going to have when you solve a CR question right after it? right? Even if your ability in answering CR question is high, you will have been bogged down by your experience with that SC question. Versus if you go through the meaning based approach, you feel as if you are in control. Okay, that's the beauty of it. You feel that not only has an impact on how you perform on that particular question, it also has the impact on how you perform on the remaining questions on your test. That confidence is the positive feedback loop. Okay, so what's the optimum approach for SC? So just putting it all together. Step 1, you understand the original sentence. You read the original sentence to understand the meaning, and over here you have to understand the roles played by each and every entity. Okay. Step 2, you identify major errors in choice A. I'm not talking about those nitty-gritty errors, major errors, and really this step becomes very, very easy once you understand the meaning. And in the end, you basically analyze each choice in the light of analysis done for choice A. Now you have to, when you're reading the, especially in the cases of completely underlined sentences, you now have split your sentence into chunks of sentences. Now your sentence is not a group of 50 words, but it's really a group of 5 segments. Now you have to see how those 5 segments are structured in the answer choices, right? So you have to do that analysis. You have to review answer choices, keeping in mind the analysis that you did for the original choice. And because the first 2 steps are done on choice A, that's why we say that you need to spend upwards of 50% of your time on choice A. This is the whole reason. Because of all the analysis that you do on choice A that goes into your analysis of choices B, C, D, and E, that is why you have to spend more time on choice A. Because you actually set the context of your how is it, you know how to approach these choices only after having done the analysis on choice A. Because if you don't do that, then you are simply struggling to find clues from these choices, 3 or 4 of which will definitely be wrong. Okay. You do all the analysis on choice A so that you have a very strong basis for how is it that you should be evaluating these choices. That is why you have to spend upwards of 50% of your time on choice A. Does this make sense now? When I say spend more time on choice A, I don't mean that in absolute terms. I mean relatively you have to spend more time on choice A. The total time that you spend on an SC question, 60% of that time should be spent on choice A. Okay? Now, the question definitely is, how do you get to that 45 to 60 seconds per SC question? Ultimately, you have to answer questions in the test environment. Okay? So there are 2 things that you need to know. The first thing is, you need to learn how to read a sentence. You have to read slowly and pause appropriately. You can't just go and practice any random questions out there. No. You have to practice using the right kind of content so that you get the knowledge of variety of sentence structures that are present. Okay. Now let's figure out, how do you study methodic? How is it that so how can you learn the right way of reading a sentence? That's why we have created this course called as Master Comprehension course. In this course, we teach you how is it that you break the sentence down into its smaller chunks so that you understand the meaning. Okay, we teach you how to break it down so that you understand the meaning of the sentence in the first read itself. Okay, in this session, I was pausing at those different points, right? There were some very clear indications as to where I need to pause. Others were not probably that clear, right? So the technique of strategic pausing is what we teach in Master Comprehension course. Okay, so this is the foundation course for sentence correction course, and frankly, this is the foundation course for all of verbal. Why? Because you have these chunks of text that you have to read. In a sentence correction question, it's a single sentence. In a CR question, it's a paragraph, or maybe, and then in an RC question, it's multiple paragraphs, right? So again, you have to read these chunks of information, read and comprehend these chunks of information. For that, you really need to know what is the right way of reading. And right way of reading is slow way of reading, utilizing strategic pausing. So definitely this course is the way to go to build your foundation. Now once you have the foundation, then you go through the SC course and you learn the grammar rules and you learn how to apply them. For example, how do pronouns work? Okay, what are the acceptable uses of verb ing words as verbs, adjectives, or nouns? When do you use like? When do you use as? When do you have logical? When do you have parallel lists that are logical but that may not be grammatical? Those are the kinds of things that you learn in the SC course, and you learn all of that while learning how to apply those as well. All right. Let me just skip through these slides. For some reason, these slides, you've already gone through these slides in the first part. Let me just skip through these. Sorry about that. Just give me a couple of seconds. All right. So we are now to our last question. We are on our last question now. Okay. So now in this question, only part of a sentence has been underlined. Okay. But as you are answering the question, I want to make sure that you read the entire sentence to understand the complete meaning. Okay. I don't want you to just focus on the underlined portion of the sentence. So let me bring back the poll here. Can you please click on still solving? All right, here you go. Last 15 seconds. All right, I'm going to end the poll now. All right. So 43% accuracy for this question. Choice C is the correct answer. Okay. So let's go through the meaning of this sentence. Delivery drones, unlike conventional modes of transport, so there's a comparison or contrast here. Unlike conventional modes of transport, ship goods, okay, so that's the action done by delivery drones DD, ship goods without becoming carbon intensive. So they ship goods without becoming carbon intensive with their ability to run on batteries. Now, what is the role of with their abilities to run on batteries? Tell me. It's a modifier. What else? What is it doing? So it's basically explaining how DD ship goods without becoming carbon intensive because they are able to run on batteries. Okay, so characteristic that explains why the DD delivery drones are not carbon intensive. Absolutely, because they run on batteries, they are less carbon intensive. Absolutely. Efficiently covering short distances. Now, because they run on batteries, they are able to efficiently cover short distances, right? However, their inability to cover long distances may hinder their popularity in transportation industry. So there is this contrast here. What is the contrast? The contrast is because they are not able to cover long distances, this inability may get in the way of their popularity in transportation industry. Okay, so frankly speaking, at a very high level, there are two contrasting facts about DD. Okay, the first one is about a positive thing that they have a less carbon footprint. Why? Because they run on batteries, and because they run on batteries, they are efficient for short distances. Okay. The second fact is that because they cannot cover long distances, right, they may not get popular. That's the contrasting fact. Okay. So overall, the meaning is very, very clear over here. Okay. Now, the one thing that I want you to notice is, even though only a small part of the sentence was underlined, when we read the sentence for its meaning, we basically went through the entire sentence. Okay? But now when we are analyzing the errors in the sentence, we will focus more on the underlined portion, but we are not going to lose sight of the non-underlined portion. Okay? So over here in this sentence, the main issue really is with regards to with their, if you think about it, everything else from subject, verb, pronouns, everything else is fine except for this thing with their ability to run on batteries. That's a very weird expression to express the causality here, right? So this part, as we learned, is really expressing the why aspect of why they are not carbon intensive, right? So appropriate expression should be used here. Okay, so let's now take a look at the answer choices. Okay, so choice B, ship goods without becoming carbon intensive running on batteries. Now again, that is absolutely wrong. Why? Because running on batteries, running is now presenting the result, and that is not correct. This should have presented the why aspect. And again, this is where the meaning analysis that you did was very, very important. It's very, very important because you know that the role played by this entity is to present the why aspect of why DD do not become carbon intensive, right? But over here, this is presenting this expression is now presenting the result, which is not correct. So choice B is wrong. Okay. Choice C. Ship goods without becoming carbon intensive because they run on battery. Now, because is absolutely correct. Okay, because they run on batteries and thus efficiently cover. Now here, thus efficiently cover is describing, is basically giving you the result of them running on batteries, right? So thus efficiently cover short distances, right? So choice C is correct. Now only 43% of the class selected choice C. So again, you should have the other segment should have a solid rationale for rejecting choice C. So tell me, why is it that you rejected choice C? Why did you reject choice C? It's wordy, okay? Did not like the word efficiently, okay? Efficiently is there everywhere. That was not the new word in choice C. Seems similar to, it did not like the word efficiently. Cause relationship because. Okay, so that's what we wanted, right? So again, if you understood the original meaning from the original choice, then you would have jumped on to select choice C. Now, because and as, they are both, they can be used interchangeably. There is nothing says that you have to use because or you have to use as. Okay. Presence of because confused me. I lost causal relationship as though as present in D is more appropriate. No, I mean as they run on batteries, as and because express the same meaning. Okay, so again guys, the reason why I asked this question in the class is so that you guys learn from the mistakes that other students are doing, right? Again, you have to understand that these reasons here are not really valid. Because versus as, there's no difference there. Covering sounded more correct than cover. Now again, good point here. Again, it's not over here, it's not just cover, it is does cover. Okay, so yes, that's the reason why explicitly we have stated here, does cover is same as covering. Covering is presenting the result, does cover is also presenting the result. Okay, so again, it's these kinds of sentence structure related things that you have to be absolutely familiar with. And how can you get familiar with that? By going through the e-GMAT content, by going through the detailed solutions that tell you when there are more than one ways to express the same thing, right? The thing that is over here, because and as both are absolutely correct, right? So when you go through this question, when you go through the solution of this question, you will be able to break so many misconceptions that you have in your head. Okay? Which is something which you're not going to find anywhere else, because nowhere else will you find the solutions that are created so that your approach is corrected. Our solutions are not created just from the standpoint of telling you that, okay, this is why that this is the correct answer. Our solutions have been created so that you understand where is it that you faltered. Just by the sheer action of going through the solution, you will be able to pinpoint issues in your approach. Okay, now can ships sounded better? Again, it's not the matter of sounded better. You have to go by what is it that the author told you. The author simply said that, the author is saying that delivery drones ship goods. Okay, he's saying that as a matter of fact. That's a fact. He's not saying that the delivery drones have the ability to ship goods. Okay, and that is a very, very big reason why choice D is wrong. The other reason that choice D is wrong is they run on batteries to efficiently cover short distances. That's not what the author is saying. The author is saying that as a matter of fact, these delivery drones, they run on batteries. By the way, because they run on batteries, they are able to efficiently cover short distances. So again, think about it. When they decided to put batteries on delivery drones, the idea was not not what the author is saying. The author is not saying that they were put on, that batteries were put in DD in order for DD to efficiently cover short distances. No. Battery was probably just the logical thing for them to do, and because they are on batteries, they are able to efficiently cover short distances. Okay, so again, you have to understand the intent behind each and every aspect in the original sentence. Okay, choice E is wrong because again, may ship goods. There's just a whole lot of different things happening. So let me take a few questions now. In this question, I did not have strong reasons to reject A. Okay. Now in this question, I do understand that you may not feel that, okay, with their ability to run on batteries is something that's weird. I absolutely agree with you. So let me read further. And that puts more pressure to evaluate all the options more carefully. In situations like this, nearby answer to options C and D starts to become confusing. Okay, again, this will not happen if you understand the role played by each and every entity. Even if you didn't understand that with their ability to run on batteries is incorrect expression, still, you should have been able to understand the role played by what with their ability to run on batteries is. You should have been able to figure out efficiently covering short distances. What is the role played by that? Because again, in choice D, efficiently covering short distances, that the role has completely changed. The role has completely changed from it originally being a result of running on batteries to now in choice D, it being something which was the purpose. So again, how to handle this? The answer to all these questions is understand the meaning, understand the role played by each and every entity. And again, I'm glad, Varsha, that you brought this question up. Why? Because again, when you say that meaning is important, right? Going back to the beginning of this session, to what avail? To what degree, right? This is the degree that I'm talking about. Okay, you need to know each and every entity in the sentence. What is the role played by that entity? Are there any tricks to smart guessing if you cannot understand the meaning even after 60 to 90 seconds in? That's an absolutely wrong question to ask. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry for being so curt. Why? Because, again, if this question is something that you're asking after having spent the effort in building the process, right, then that's a different thing. Then I would say you have to adjust with your SC percentile being low. And then you have to make sure that you put in the effort to bump up your CR and RC percentile. My straightforward statement is, you cannot get to that 90 percentile in SC without mastering the meaning-based approach. Okay? So the right question to ask is, how can I master this? Okay? How can I get to the understanding of meaning in the right amount of time? Okay, that's the right question to ask. So how do you get to 90 percentile ability? Okay, so again, there are three things that you have to do. You have to first of all learn how to read effectively. Okay, that you do through Master Comprehension course. The second thing is you have to master all grammar. Okay, you have to learn all the grammar rules, and that's something you have to learn the grammar rules. You have to learn how to apply them, right? Now, that's what you do using the e-GMAT SC course. And then you have to evaluate yourself and you have to cement the methods that you're learning through Scholaranium. Okay, and that's something, so essentially if you think about it, there are specialized tools for each and every purpose. You build your foundation in sentence correction by going through Master Comprehension course. You learn the nitty-gritty details of sentence correction questions. How do you apply the process? What are the grammatical rules? After going through the e-GMAT SC course. Then you cement those methods by taking custom quizzes, a specific kind of custom quizzes which we guide you towards. You basically then cement your methods, utilize doing strategic review of solutions of the questions that you attempt in Scholaranium. Okay, strategic review focusing on why is it that you made the mistake. If you understood the meaning, still why did you make the mistake? If you didn't understand the meaning, why did you not understand the meaning? So we go into all those kinds of details. Okay. Now learn to read effectively. As I said, master comprehension course, this is the basic foundation course. We teach you what are the building blocks of a sentence. We teach you how is it that long sentences are formed, and utilizing the same techniques, how do you deconstruct those long sentences. Okay. Then we teach you about the pause points. Okay. And we teach you how to apply those pause points. Okay. So frankly, in fewer than 2 hours, you can go from someone who is a flat reader to someone who reads with a purpose. And in fact, Marcos, a native speaker, he benefited immensely from Master Comprehension course. Now, because he's a native speaker, he was able to understand most of GMAT sentences, but because of that formal nature of language, comprehending what he read took a lot of time. But once he went through the Master Comprehension course, he was able to understand the role played by each snippet in the sentence, experiencing an amazing improvement in his reading speed. And this improvement had a huge impact in his RC and CR ability as well. So let's come back. Now, the next 2 points are mastering the grammar and the process, and then evaluating and iterating. And one thing that I will like to tell you is that, learning is, you can't just get to that 90 percentile by simply studying. Instead, you need to focus on perfecting. Okay, and there are these 3 pillars that you have to understand. Okay, so you need to first learn the process. Okay, you need to learn the grammar rules, you need to learn the process, and you do that through the concept files and the application files and the practice files that are there in each module in the SC course. After you do that, you need to get those, you need to utilize the insights that the system provides you. The video lessons provide you feedback every 15 to 20 minutes. Okay, you take those custom quizzes and those ability quizzes, and you get feedback every 30 hours, right? So you do that, and you personalize all of this education through your personalized study plan, through the skill data that we provide you in Scholaranium, through the custom quizzing engine that we provide you. Okay, so again, let's just take an example of how this personalization can be done, utilized in the course, and I'm going to show you an example of verbs module, and this is one of the 10 modules that exist in the SC course. And first of all, I want you to just simply look at the extent of coverage in this. So you have these, you first learn the concepts through these 3 concept files, okay, and you get those insights on learning. How well have you learned these concepts? Okay. Now, when you look at, and then you basically practice, you learn the application of these concepts, not only on e-GMAT questions, but also on official questions. And again, we have detailed solutions for each of the official questions here. Okay. And you obviously get the scores as well. You learn the next set of concepts, then again you get the insights, you learn the next set of applications. So what you look at over here is we are not burdening you with all the grammar rules all at once and then having you recollect those grammar rules and then solve SC questions. No, what we are doing instead is we are giving you, small blocks of information. Okay, and then we are testing you on questions that only test these blocks of information. Okay, and we are slowly, progressively building your ability to apply those concepts. Okay, that's the beauty of the modular nature of the SC course. Okay, it's modular, so, and okay, that, okay, in these questions I'm going to be applying the concepts that I've learned over here. So you have that, so whatever you're learning, you're applying right away, which means that you're able to cement those methods right away, cement those concepts right away. Okay, now when this student takes a look at the dashboard, so the student went through this whole thing, and towards the end of it, he realized, he got a 60% score in the final practice quiz, and that's not a good score. We want you guys to aim at a 100% score in the SC course, right? So now he has to do a root cause analysis. So what is causing this low score? It's actually very much evident from his course dashboard. He didn't score well in verb sequencing file, which means that he still has issues with understanding how do you sequence events. Okay, he didn't score well in the application file, and that was very obvious because whatever he learned here had to be applied to this application file. So again, it's not a surprise that he didn't do well in this application file. Furthermore, there were certain, other conditional verb, this is also where he faltered. So now this student knows exactly how he has to improve in order to do well in verbs. What he has to work on is he has to work on building his skill set in verb sequencing. So he needs to go through this file once again. He needs to then also go through the application file again to basically make sure that he is able to apply those concepts, right? So the insights are already there, and then he can check whether he improved in verbs or not by going through the Scholarium platform and by taking a custom quiz that only tests verbs questions. Okay, so again, that's the power of the data. Even before the person completed the whole essay course, just after completing the verbs module, the person knew that, oh, I have to do better here. So now, by just spending an hour or so, this student can go from 60 percentile ability to 90 percentile ability in verb tenses in just less than an hour. Okay, that's the beauty of getting all the data, of having the right kind of data on the right kind of content. Okay. Now let's take a look at another story. Ria thought that her SC was very good, but she faltered in SC big time in her first attempt, and then she purchased the verbal online course, and she did SC diligently. She looked at her data in the dashboard and in Scholarium, and she focused selectively on certain areas and was finally able to score 99 percentile in sentence correction. Now, this is one of the many examples of students who go from nowhere to acing GMAT SC as well as other sections in GMAT Verbal. While their starting points are different, they take different times to prepare, but the thing that's common amongst everyone is that they apply the methods that are taught in the course and they leverage Scholarium data to isolate the areas of weakness. To end this session, I would say that, I understand that putting effort on GMAT requires sacrifices, but it's these sacrifices that take us to that next level in our lives, just as they did for Nishant, or for Mansi, or for Samya, or for Ria. So to summarize, you cannot just get to 90 percentile by studying. You have to focus on perfecting it. Okay. All right. So let me take some more doubts over here, and just give me 1 second. All right. Can you amplify on the role played by each entity? Okay. Well, that's the whole. Okay, whenever you're reading the sentence, you have to always make sure that you understand the chunks of sentences in the right manner. And as you go through Master Comprehension course, you will be able to understand that really very well. Okay. All right. So any other questions that you may have? Let me just get rid of this stuff here. I'm going to take away all the questions here. Okay, I have one question here. What if the given sentence is too grammatically incorrect that I don't understand the actual meaning? Is this not possible? It is possible. In that case as well, what we need to do is we need to understand the meaning of various chunks in the sentence. Okay, in the DD sentence, there were these big chunks of sentences, right? Big chunks in the sentence. So I want you to understand as many chunks as possible. Okay, and try to put them together and try to infer the meaning. That's where the inferring of the meaning comes into picture. Okay, so again, it's the same approach here. Alright guys, so we are at the end of this session here. While I share the PDF with you and I answer some last few questions that you may have, I would love for you to put in your feedback over here. Okay, and I'm going to share some, want to get some subjective feedback here as well. Okay, and you may put in your questions. Let me just clear out all the Q&A pod, so all the questions here. So you may put in your questions over here that I can address to in the last 5 to 10 minutes. I know you guys are really tired now. Oh yes, what PDF am I sharing? Yes, I need to share the PDF. That's the session presentation. So the presentation that we went through today. So it's that PDF. No, there are no more questions to practice in this PDF, but you can access Scholaranium and you should be able to get good number of SC questions there. How to use SC e-GMAT course efficiently without repeating same error. So good question, Brinda. When you purchase the e-GMAT course, the first thing that you have to do is you have to create your personalized study plan, and that plan, so as Rajat was explaining, you put in your starting abilities and then the system tells you your target abilities based on your target GMAT score, right? Once you have that, let's say you are at less than 70 percentile ability in SCs, your starting ability. You need to then go through the entire course in the right manner. And in the right manner means that you start from master comprehension, you make sure that you are understanding the content. The main thing is you're not going through the content just for the sake of going through it, okay? You need to understand the content. You need to make sure that you're scoring above 90% in all the files in the course, okay? And you're going through each and every part of the course, not just the practice files, not just the concept files. You need to go through them in the order in which they are presented in the course, okay? Because that's when the learning happens. That's when the progressive learning happens, okay? Okay, how long does it take to complete Scholaranium? It's a good question, and again, it's a matter of where you're at and where do you want to get to. Okay, if you do, again, it's the whole point of this is that I don't want you to be solving thousands and thousands of questions. Okay, you need to know why is it that you're solving questions. Okay, if let's say after going through the course you are at, let's say, 70 percentile and your target score is to get to 90 percentile, in that case you come to Scholaranium, you solve 40 questions, 20 medium questions, 20 hard questions. You do proper level of strategic review, and if you do that strategic review properly, after 40 questions you should be at 90 percentile. So again, the question is how long would it take to complete Scholaranium? Completing Scholaranium is not the goal. The goal is for you to get to that 90 percentile ability in SC. Okay, and how do you get to you get to it by following the cement methods stage of your learning very, very effectively. Okay. Can the original sentence be correct in the real exam? Absolutely, it can be correct. Any one of the 5 answer choices can be correct. How do I let go of my habit to be tempted by answer choices and not focus on the sentence? Good question. Do one thing. Next time when you answer the question, if you're answering the question on the screen, just hide all the answer choices. Okay. Hide it, do it by force. Okay? Till the time you haven't read the question completely, you haven't understood the sentence completely. How to efficiently find errors in sentence after understanding the meaning? Well, that's the whole point of going through the course, right? I want you to go through the e-GMAT course wherein you start from the most basic of application files in which you have subject-verb errors only, and then you progressively move from subject-verb to verbs to pronouns, right? So you need to go through the whole concept, the whole course there to understand the application part. All right then, so I think that's it. I'm not getting any more questions. Okay, there's one. The main reason my questions are wrong because I'm tense, scared, and impatiently waiting to see my score and end up seeing really bad scores. So again, Richa, you have to. That's the control that is required, right? What I tell my students is that when you are going through, when you are solving the question on the screen, that question should mean the world to you. Don't worry about what you did in the past. Don't worry about what is going to come in the future. Okay, just focus on that question, but at the same time, don't get too invested in the question. That's also there. Okay, so again, it's when you get to that test readiness. So again, there are 3 stages of preparation. In stage 1, you're learning the concepts and you're learning the methods. Okay, there, don't just worry, focus on just learning the process and the methods. That's very important. At that time, it doesn't matter how long it should take for you to answer a question. You're just absorbing all the content. Okay, you're just absorbing the process. You're just learning the process. You're just doing a lot of iterative thing. Okay, when you get to the second stage in which you're cementing those methods, that's when you're learning, you're utilizing scholaranium. Now that's where you start to be very critical of yourself. You start to do a lot of strategic review of questions. Okay, and we help you in doing all of that. We actually we have so when a student starts the process, he basically gets to know how to do all of these things. And when you get to the last stage, which is the test readiness stage, that is where you now think about, okay, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How are you going to optimize on your strengths? How are you going to make sure that you don't get stuck on your weak areas? In fact, today only, there was a student who basically sent me an email saying that, okay, my target is to get to a Q50, and I have been able to get that utilizing your Sigma X Mogs, but I have decided that I'm not going to do advanced topics because that's something which I don't want to spend my time on. Now I want to know from you, is that the right strategy? And to answer to his question, yes, absolutely. He knows what his weak areas are, and he's decided to skip those questions. But then the student asked another interesting question. What if advanced topic questions comes up in the first 10 questions? Right now, first 10 questions, I need to up my game there, right? I need to set the stage right that I can answer difficult questions correctly. So what do I do then? Now, this student only has to improve in advanced topics to a certain degree that he can handle medium level questions properly, right? So this student knows exactly what he has to be focusing on. Okay, so that is, again, the whole point over here is that you, in step number 3, you understand what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses and how do you get to that part. Okay. All right. So, alright, so I have one comment over here. Reading all success stories is sometimes demotivating. All the more makes me doubt myself if I will be ever able to achieve that. Again, you shouldn't feel that way. Okay, why? Because everyone goes through challenges. Okay, these success stories, they are not something which come very naturally. I mean, people struggle through it. You should take a look at these success stories with the standpoint of what struggles they had, and you should be learning from the struggles that they had, right? So these should be actually motivating for you rather than demotivating. Okay, so again, if you are demotivated, send me an email and we will try to help you out there. Okay, and thank you everyone for your wonderful feedback here. I do see, I do see that there were certain concepts that I started explaining which was appreciated by some but not appreciated by some other people. I understand that, so we will try to keep it balanced again. And again, the thing is that you have to the main point over here is that you need to have the right approach. Okay, so let's do that. And again, write to us if you have any questions. We are there to help you out. And again, when you start the e-GMAT course, my request to you is just focus on the e-GMAT material. Don't go outside looking for other kind of content, because again, nobody else teaches the methods that we teach the process that we teach. So if you go outside thinking that you can have multiple sources of information and that's going to help you, that's actually going to do negative. Okay, that's going to have a negative impact on your performance. So when you sign up for e-GMAT course, just focus on it completely, you will get there, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Should I not refer to official guide also with e-GMAT? Official guide is a different thing. Official guide has official questions. So yes, you should refer to the official questions, and we have official questions, official solutions of official questions in our course, but definitely utilize the solutions that we offer. Okay. All right then. Thank you so much for all your feedback, and I wish to see you on the platform soon. Right. So good luck, and good luck for your preparation.